Welcome to my house. I'm here with Frieda Levycky, founder of Braving Boundaries. At the beginning of COVID, just over a year ago, you and I sat down and had a really long, interesting, in-depth chat about mental wellness, specifically in the law space. You just launched Braving Boundaries then, I believe, and I really wanted to catch up with you and see how the last 12 months has gone and really review how the industry has reacted to COVID and whether mental wellness and programs have increased or decreased, and really just have a full rundown of everything that's been happening. So welcome, and how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. A little bit cold, it's a chilly morning here in Cape Town.
Absolutely,
yeah. It's okay.
So 12 months ago, let's say 12, 13 months ago when we sat down, you just launched Braving Boundaries. How's it gone?
It's been a really good year, actually. It's been quite interesting. So, I mean, as you know, Braving Boundaries is very much focused on helping legal professionals to create better balance in their lives, and it's really about creating successful careers whilst having happier and more fulfilling and healthy lives in and outside the office. And I think during the pandemic, there's been so much emphasis on personal development and self-help whilst everybody's been in lockdown situations, that there's been a real interest that has been created around coaching. It has been quite interesting from a business perspective, seeing where the peaks and troughs have been. So towards kind of when we did our talk last year, it was really there was a lot of interest in coaching. But I think what's happened is that there's been so much free information, so many free webinars, so much emphasis on self-help, and you need to look after yourself over the last 12 months. So people have felt quite overwhelmed and inundated with all this information. And so from my Braving Boundaries perspective, what we've seen is that people got to like New Year and were just a bit done in with all of the self-help. But what I'm seeing is that increase has started again around April, because people are taking on all this information, but they're not actually implementing it. So, you're being told all the whys, why you need to look after yourself, why you're feeling the way you're feeling, and what you should do, but not about how you should do it. And I know from personal experience that it's actually having that accountability and that one-on-one, you understand my problem and my issues and my concerns, that is where one-on-one coaching has come in. So that's what I've seen in that kind of movement around coaching on an individual basis, at least over the last 12 months.
Do you think it's moved quite quickly? And what I mean by that is, if I think back to when we first sat down, mental wellness was a topic that obviously you wonderfully were acting on, and you created Braving Boundaries, and can't wait to get into more detail about all the topics and tools that you've added to those programs. But also it was something that, for instance, for myself, I knew needed to be tackled, and we were COVID was still relatively new. I think no one really knew what was coming in terms of certainly death rates and what would happen in the workplace. But it was something that I was conscious that probably the legal market and the legal sector had needed to tackle for quite a while. And then, like you say, 12, 13, 14 months in, you're getting a position where people are, do you think that it moves quite quickly, where people were sort of, oh, okay, I do have issues I'm going to need to face, and do you think that they were, let's say, lawyers were quick to act on it, and they've done it, or they got to a certain point and went, oh, actually, I now know it all, or how's the market been, I suppose?
So on an individual level, I think there is a greater awareness. From an organisational perspective, I think COVID has put everybody into a greater awareness around the fact that people are reacting differently to the situation. We've had we talked about predictions of what we saw coming. So we saw hybrid working coming and not going anywhere. We looked at fears around job loss, fears around not being in a community environment and sharing ideas, particularly for the junior lawyers. We looked at, what else did we look at? We looked at worries about where business was coming from, how to be able to bring in new business, how to sustain overheads. All of those things have happened, and all of those fears were very, very real. And there was an awareness, and I think a community online that was created through the law firms. But now that we are 12 months in, 13 months in, and things haven't changed, there is this kind of, oh goodness, now what do we do? And there's a kind of resistance to going back to what it was normally, or what it was before, and trying to create normality in many respects. So we're back to overworking. We're back to pulling long hours. We're back to, well, we never lost the billable hours. We're back to hitting our targets. And we've not, in my view, I don't think we're really learning and applying what we've seen over the last 12 months and actually changing the way we work. So that, from an individual perspective, I do think there is more awareness. From a team perspective, I think there was more awareness, but we're kind of reverting back into old ways now. And I really, really think we need to start innovating and seeing the benefits of what a different style of work-life balance, work-life environment can bring to a team.
Oh, if we just step back into just the old way of working, if the industry does that, then they would have really missed the trick, really, and a real wonderful opportunity to change the way of working. And I think one of the things that I've thought about a lot this year, specifically with my own staff, but it was something we touched on in the previous podcast where we talked about, I think you used an analogy about the people in the business being like a Formula One car almost. And you know, if you spend millions on a Formula One car, you tinker it and you improve it and you look after it because the car is the team's main product, if you like. Well, that and the driver, obviously, but you also look after the driver. But in a law firm, in particular in the past, and this is obviously a sweeping statement, this is in every law firm, the looking after the main product, which is the lawyer, and in many cases the lawyer's mental wellness, has not even been on the forefront. It's like churn and burn. It's like, do 2,500 hours at the US law firms, smash it out, and when they burn out, so we'll bring in a new associate and we'll just go again.
Well, one not great for the morale, but also not very good from a cost-effective perspective. The amount of money it costs to train someone to replace them is a joke, really. And
do you think it's a lot of the time? Again, we're making sweeping statements because we're going to be talking about the law, and obviously there's thousands of law firms, and many firms will do things differently. But do you think it's kind of human nature as well, just to they just want to go back to where they were comfortable, like get everyone back to the office. Like you said, get back to where we can control the environment, where we can control the working hours.
Yes, I think that there's comfort in normality. There's comfort in what we know, and lawyers are risk averse by nature. So anything that's slightly different and a bit, or extremely different in these circumstances isn't going to sit comfortably. We don't have any knowledge in our brains and evidence in our brains to show that it will work. So by virtue, it is a risk. What's interesting though is that despite all of the data that is out there, all of the task force, what was it called? The Task Force in Lawyer Wellbeing report was 2016. The IBA, the International Bar Association, brought out its research that it did in 2020, July 2020 to December 2020, I think. And then it released its interim results in 2021. There is evidence to show that, I think, what was the statement they used? That law is one of the most traumatized industries. There is
Wow.
real mental health issues in law, and it needs to be addressed.
That's an incredibly powerful statement for an overarching association to say about one of the biggest revenue generating industries, one of the most prestigious industries in the world, in every country, that it is a traumatized industry.
Yeah, well, hang on. I actually wrote these statistics down so that I can actually tell you what was said. So they interviewed 3,000 plus people. 180 organisations, whether it was in-house, private practice, or in government organisations. And lawyer wellbeing was a cause for global concern. 41% do not discuss wellbeing issues individuals do not discuss wellbeing issues for fear of damaging their careers or their livelihoods.
Okay, so
low levels of international and national wellbeing support. 22% were saying that they do not exist in law firms, despite having all of these charters and protocols in place. That wellbeing is very much on the bigger, grander scheme in law firms. These are my scary ones. Employees think well-being is a priority, but not what they are experiencing. That is not what the staff themselves are experiencing within law firms. And then 73% of institutions say well-being initiatives are in place. 16% are saying that they are actually being offered or they're made available to them.
Yeah, okay. So that doesn't sound uncommon, does it? Within organisations. Okay, so I want to harbour on something, focus on some of those stats. So, sorry, remind me the last one, the 79%.
73% of institutions say wellbeing initiatives are in place.
Okay, so nearly 3/4 of firms are saying are quizzed and they're saying, yes, of course, we've got wellness in place and we take it very seriously. Yeah. Standard line, but only 16% of lawyers are interviewed saying that they've actually been offered it, which is incredibly low.
Well, my point is though, is that it goes back to what we were talking about before about that why and the what. So yes, we know that we need to have these wellbeing workshops, wellbeing protocols, wellbeing practices available. We know vaguely what they should be covering, but then what? How is that actually being transposed over to the individuals? How is it being implemented in the firms?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you take it back a step as well, like, it's sort of an overriding arch of the law sector, and I keep an eye on all of the news coming out, is that in the last couple of years, a lot of the law firms have recorded record profits, right? And certainly some of the US law firms, I mean, one of them touched on, for the first time, revenues over $4.5 billion. I mean, so how do you turn around to firms like this and go, no, you're doing it wrong, like, or you need to look after people if they're increasing their results, because there's a lot of people in that LLP that will sit there and go, what are we getting wrong? We've managed to navigate coronavirus, make more money, and that's really, I'm sort of playing devil's advocate a little bit, and I'm being a bit facetious in a way. But there are, there's going to be a lot of blockage at the top if companies are still generating lots of revenue, things are happy. Happy. Why change anything? I suppose there's going to be.
I don't know what the environments are like in those places, but I don't imagine that they're particularly friendly. I would imagine they're pretty cutthroat, particularly if you're gung-ho and your primary focus is on profit. And if you have got disgruntled staff and you've got staff that are backstabbing each other, which becomes more commonplace in competitive environments.
It goes back to the bullying thing that we talked about, and we should talk about that again,
you've got people who are spending all their time in the office and not spending any time at home with their families. You're going to have increased divorce rates. Now, if you're working for a company, and I know for me personally, if I was working for a company that all they cared about was profit and they didn't care about me, I would leave at some stage. And I have left as a result of those things. And, it's about the individual. There is becoming, what I imagine is going to happen, and I really hope it does over the next 5 years, is that mental health practices become compulsory within law firms, so that it isn't such a churn, a wheel that is going through, because burnout rates are going to increase. It's already, I think it's number 8 in industries that has the highest suicide rate.
Yes, we talked about that before.
And I think it's the IBA that's just.
I think the first 7 are medical, and then 8 is law.
It's law.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be, and we shouldn't be. That there are really.
It's not a badge of honour.
No, but there are really easy ways of addressing the mental health stresses and strains that exist in the legal world, which, instead of looking at it as a cost, I mean, if you're earning, what, 4 billion, did you say?
Yeah, that's one
you
firm
can
in particular.
spend, I don't know, 100 grand of that on employee wellness, and it's not even going to like mark your profit, but it's going to help your staff. It will create, and there is proof to show that you create much more focused individuals. They're more productive, they're happier, the workplaces feels better. There's more collaboration, there's more innovation, which we are terrible at as lawyers. We're more creative, we can think outside the box, but we've also got that balance outside of the office because people respect, we trust each other more because we know that we're not going to get stabbed in the back the minute we leave the office because we're not dedicated to our jobs.
Yeah.
Rant over.
No, but it's absolutely, completely and utterly true. And I think the trouble is, it's almost, I thought about this the other day, maybe it's not even the pandemic and the lockdowns that we've been facing globally, and every country's been slightly different, but it's almost maybe not been long enough for some law firms to implement a change that need, or maybe that's one thing I thought of the other day, that if you've got a slow turning wheel, like many cases the law is, maybe we need another year's worth of lockdowns to get people to really. And also then the other side of that is if people are working from home largely, then maybe this person A's trials and tribulations that they are suffering with is not as visual because the people aren't, their bosses aren't seeing it. But then I was chatting to someone the other day, and I was actually chatting to my cousin who works at a law firm, name redacted, in Dubai this morning, and I was chatting to her, and she was saying that, that, and this other person was saying as well that going back, starting to get back into the work environment, it feels like many of the old things are coming back, and maybe that's not a good thing as well. I think we're in a bit of a crossroads. I think at the moment, and whether it seems. Sorry, I was just going to say. I fear that mental wellness and any programs that have been put in place are just going to subside, with the focus with getting everybody back to normal, as it were. And that's a concern for me.
There is a high likelihood that now, we've gone through this pandemic, or we're still going through this pandemic. People are being pushed back into the offices. Normality isn't intended to resume. And we're going to lock back into our comfort zones. We're going to forget all the innovation that we've learned over the last 12 months. Okay, some firms may go into hybrid working, but there's a real push for a lot of firms to be fully back on in the office. And there are reasons for that. But you go back into your comfort zone for lawyers, profit. So you'll push back in that direction. And the money, for some law firms, they're fully stable, they've expanded, there's practice areas that have really benefited as a result of COVID. So the workflow's there, everything's going to be focused on work. Any area that has been really struggling during the pandemic, which is quite normal, there's some areas that are going to prosper and some others, but they're not going to want to spend money on things that they do not see as driving profit, and coaching, workshops, anything to do with mental health and wellness. There's still that archaic mindset in place that it's not driving profit, it's not contributing to the bottom line.
Lump it in with HR and just
they'll do it.
Make
soft issue.
Do something.
But it's not, and this is you go back to your my Formula One motor car analogy is that if you look after your staff, they are the people that do the work. They are the people that will build your profits. They're the ones that you need to look after. Absolutely.
I can tell you from a legal recruitment perspective, and this is global. This is not just limited to South Africa or Hong Kong or London or the other markets. So it's global. One of the things that's come out this year, there's a number of things that I predicted and have come true. But one of the things I've noticed more of is that there's been a realization amongst a lot of senior lawyers that I talk to that they'd lost sight of why they were doing law in the first place. Obviously you've been a partner of a law firm, so you can speak on this. But a lot of lawyers love the law. They love that inquisitive. They've got that inquisitive mindset, and they want to burrow in and find the right formula for this particular case, or whatever it might be. They love it. And when it's surrounded by an environment that is just driving profit, you lose sight of that. And that's why a lot of people leave the law. But maybe with having taken their foot slightly off the gas, they're realizing, actually, I still love the law. I just don't like the environment I'm in, and the support I'm not getting from my firm. So we've seen a massive splintering of the market this year. In the last 12 months, we've seen people go off and set up on their own. I mean, you've got your own consultancy, obviously.
I do,
so
yes.
You're just one of those statistics. But there's many, many, many people doing it across the world. Some, I've had conversations with senior lawyers where we've really burrowed down on what their motivations to move are, and they have, they've really, on more than one occasion, I've come at the end of that conversation and gone, okay, so you still love the law, and it's not practice you want to leave, it's actually the firm that you really want to leave, because they're not supporting you in the ways that other firms will do. So we've seen a lot of that. We've seen a lot of people just set up on their own, like I mentioned, and because they're realizing that. Again, I had a managing partner of a firm the other day say to me, "I just don't want to deal with the rubbish anymore. I just want to get back to doing the law." Yeah. Which is really nice to hear. It's like, well, we can find you somewhere that you can give up all the other bits and pieces, and you can just concentrate on doing the law and falling back in love with it. So we're seeing a lot of that. And on the flip side to that, we're actually seeing, and I was saying this to a client in Hong Kong the other day, said 50% of the market is like that, and 50% of the market is not moving. They are almost scared to move. There's been, almost like the whole pandemic has. I mean, people have used excuses like, "Oh, my company's been really good to me, and I'm really loyal to them, and I want to." I don't really believe that. To be frank, I think it's a case. In many cases, it's a case of they are. They've kind of got an environment now that they just don't want to leave. They're at home working. They've not got someone breathing down their neck. Yes, they've got targets to meet, whatever, but maybe they've got a little bit more space. Yes, they'd probably like more money or whatever, but do they really want to go into a new environment where they probably have to be in the office all the time? And so there's a real 50-50. This pandemic has caused, in the legal recruitment market, people to really act in very different ways to the traditional.
Well, you actually used the word why you're seeing so much difference, and it's motivation. So we look at behaviour. You've described a lot of behaviours. So some people are really enjoying working at home. They're liking having that freedom. They're liking having that space. Some people hate working from home because they've got kids around them all the time, or they can't concentrate, or they're so used to being in a strict and structured environment because they feel more they can concentrate more in that. What we don't talk about, and we never talk about this in law firms, is what drives people. Why do we do what we do? Why do we prefer one thing over another? And that comes down to self-awareness and understanding what works for you, understanding what drives you, what your purpose is, which is what you were just talking about. Yeah. But also, particularly when it comes to working environments, is understanding other people and what drives other people. And unless we understand the motivations of others and realise that we are not all the same, even though we have this identity and badge of lawyering, we're not all the same, and we have different personality types.
So I think, again, going back to where we were when we last had a conversation and we sat down for that podcast in that recording studio, we were recognising that there is an issue. I use the term very loosely. That's why you had launched Braving Boundaries, but it was all still relatively new. It's fine. The dogs are very much in the picture. Part of the homestead.
Life balance.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, it does help. I'm sure you've got your own.
I've got my own 3. Yeah.
And so a part of your program. So we've recognised there's an issue. You launched Braving Boundaries. The whole world, it seems, certainly if you looked at LinkedIn, certainly in the law, people were starting to take wellness seriously. they were either seeing changes in their own staff, or their staff were talking about it, or let's hope it wasn't virtual signalling by a lot of law firms. But it seemed to be much more of a conversation that people were talking about. I saw that you were on a number of podcasts and webinars that across the world, which is great. So obviously people were talking about it. And now, have you, with your program, first question, well, one of the questions I really want to ask you is, have you seen an increase in the uptake of people joining your courses and using your coaching?
Yes, I have. There's a lot more. We talked about this at the very beginning about, being quite overwhelmed with the amount of information and free information that's out there. But what I've seen more recently, and particularly from kind of April onwards, is that there's the amount of free information that's out there is actually causing more overwhelm. It's causing more fear because you're not actually progressing and applying what you're learning. And so you're reverting, too much information and too much choice of information and too many disconnected bits of information, that people are resorting to old habits and becoming more overwhelmed, and that they're actually locking themselves into their comfort zone and old patterns again. So they're overworking, they are not exercising because actually it's more important, the psyche of it's more important to be at my desk from 9 to 5. I can't possibly break for lunch, go out and have a run at 2:00 in the afternoon, whatever it is, that the habits that we tried to create during the last 12 months. What I'm also seeing is that people are feeling quite demotivated. And I know from personal experience, I am someone who is incredibly fit. So I am out, I'm a trail runner, I'm a yoga instructor. Not that I actually instruct, but I've done my yoga teacher training. But I love yoga, I hike a lot, I take the dogs out for walks. I'm very active. I went like a couch potato during lockdown. Really? So for the last 12 months, I've been like, where has this motivation disappeared to? And there's two things that were really interesting. I did my integrative Enneagram training back in March. Now I'm an Enneagram coach already through Inner Life Skills, but I wanted to do the assessment side of things as well. And that really kind of looked at the motivation, why we do what we do. So we often, as personality, often law firms and organisations look at behaviour of people rather than the motivation behind why we do what we do. So it was really interesting.
That might not just be unique to law firms. That might be most companies.
But what is interesting is that I had a big reflection going, hang on, why am I not exercising? Why am I at my desk again for 14, 15 hours a day, which is not good. This is not what I preach. I have a very good work-life balance, but why am I doing things differently? And it was coming back to motivation. So I'll tell you about what I did in a minute, but the Enneagram is such a great tool to create self-awareness about our fallback habits, where we default into when things are going badly or things are troubling us, and pathways to get out of that particular mindset.
It sounds hugely useful.
Well, it is, and it's great for self-awareness on an individual level, but on a team level, understanding that we have different personality types within our teams. You and I might not be, we won't be. Different things will drive us and motivate us and give us purpose. And so understanding that my worldview is very different from your worldview, and that's why teams are great when they function well, but it also impacts why they don't work well, and that's what creates toxic work environments. So actually tapping into the motivation is so crucial to create a good work environment.
It's really crucial. It's actually more crucial than potentially, as if Sunny's just stood right in front of the camera, it's potentially more important than the actual behavioural side of things.
Yes.
It's really just you've got to get to the core, and that's a big part of the program that you offer.
Yeah.
In terms of, and have you seen an uptick in clients?
Yes. So it's been fascinating.
Great.
I'm actually doing two sessions this week. I'm going through the feedback sessions with the Enneagram, and I honestly, I'm just like, I watch the faces of people going, oh, do you know what? They've actually got a 40-page report, which actually people understand me. This, I feel understood. I feel like someone gets me.
So really, I just I was trying to get to see whether you're seeing, as a coach, whether you're seeing similar problems or issues. I don't want to use those words really, but in your clients, is there, or is everybody completely different? Is everybody suffering slightly in a different way?
I suppose that there are common themes. There's a lot around confidence that has come up recently because of that lack of contact and connection that we've experienced over the last 12 months. So people's interaction with others, business development's feeling a little bit more shaky, just not having that regularity of interaction. And so feeling stuck about how to move forwards. There's been a lot of questioning whether they're doing the right things or not, if this is really what they want. There's been a big looking at what's my bigger purpose in life. Am I meeting those needs? There's been quite a lot of volatility around, or realization, I should say, around when people feel stuck or conflicted, there's often a conflict with values that are going on. And I've seen a lot of value conflict over the last would that
months. Be to personal to employer kind of?
Well, there's the overlay of personal to employer. I feel like I've been committed to the corporate values rather than my personal values, and my personal values are no longer there. But also with just ignoring personal values altogether and feeling dissatisfied with could be their personal relationships or their social life or their work life, and actually making that realization that actually it's because I'm not doing what is really important to me. That's what your values are. What's important to you. And so that realization is has been more common over the last year. And the other one is demotivation. I mean, there's a lot of people are stressed and unmotivated. People feel that they should be at their desks and therefore are motivated to change. And there's this real fear around changing in such an unstable environment that has been really exposed this year.
Demotivation is a big one as well, because especially when you're in a revenue generating position. I mean, there's an argument to say that every job now is a revenue generating position. Everybody needs to make money to put food on the table. But there is a real conflict when I've found in the past when you get demotivated, and the longer that goes on, the scarier it is to get back into it.
Yes.
It becomes a very big dark cloud above your head.
Yes.
And I'm quite good at bringing myself back and personally just going, right, that's it, Monday I'm going to do this, and then going for it. But others might not have that skill, and then it just gets on top of you, and then it really pushes you into demotivation.
Well, think about it. I mean, it's like running. So, once you've got into the habit of running and you're like, okay, I'm off.
So easy to fall out of.
You fall out. Well, it takes something like 6 months to feel really comfortable running, and then 2 weeks to feel really uncomfortable running again of doing nothing. And that is something that I think is what you've just said is exactly that, is that it's the hurdle to jump becomes so much higher every time we stop doing something, and then to get us back in motion again and moving forwards is really difficult. I should tell you about my yoga challenge I've just done. So I turned 40 on Thursday. So it was a 40-day challenge for me. So I was like, okay, I am massively demotivated. I'm not exercising, as I was saying before. So what I did was, rather than just go, right, I'm going to push myself and get back out on the mountain, it just wasn't working. I wasn't motivated to do it. So what I looked at, and this is part of the Braving Boundaries program anyway, is looking at what motivates you and how we create motivation. And positive motivation versus negative motivation, intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. And I'll ask you a question. What motivates, what things, why were you so successful in Hong Kong? What motivated you to be so successful?
That's a big one. Some of it positive and negative. I've got quite a competitive edge, and I went there and I thought, I want to be number one. I want to be recognised as being number one. I don't care how long it takes, and I want to win awards.
So reward focused.
Reward focused. Ego, that's not great, but that was definitely, and something we touched on before in our previous conversation. That's definitely something that I've suffered with, and I'm sure I know a lot of people do, not just men, women, professionals in general, especially if you're in an ego-driven environment or in an ego-driven industry, where you just got to keep striving. And then latterly it became about how expensive everything was, and I really needed to make the money.
Again,
but a lot of it was really driven by ego, sadly, and reward.
Okay, so not very positive.
No, not positive.
And not well, positive to some extent. external rewards are positive.
But it doesn't
motivation.
actually. Those two things don't. To touch on something you just said, those two things do not correlate with my personal values.
Okay.
Which is something that I've been on my own personal journey with in the last year, really looking at who I am, remembering who I am, which I lost sight of. And you can do when you've moved around the world like you and I have, and you start again, and we both moved to Cape Town in 2017, and and you start again, you're finding new friends and you're finding a new environment. You can lose sight of who you are and what. But I think, I know we're chopping and changing, but for me personally, those things. That's a really good point, because those things really drove me when I was in Hong Kong, and when I came to South Africa, I was reverting to type.
Okay.
And I was reverting back into that ego reward driven. We must push on. We must. If you're not working 16 hours a day, then you're not really working. But it started to not really sit well with me.
Of course, and
because it was
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable, but it isn't me. And that's one of the things that I have been on this year, where I've been really looking at myself and what are my strengths and weaknesses? What are my values? What am I living my core values?
Yeah.
And I'm happy to say that I'm sort of turning that way now, and ego and reward aren't part of it.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. It's nice to win an award. It's nice to be recognised by your peers, but at the same time, it's not the be all and end all. And I'm really realising that actually, for me, it's the quality of my work to produce something that I'm really happy with.
And because why is that important?
Because I just want to do a really good job. I want to feel comfortable in my.
What's the benefit of doing a really good job? For you.
For me. I don't know. I've never really thought about it. A nice warm glow.
Well, if you look, and this is the point about looking at finding that motivation to keep you going, is that what's the long-term goal you're trying to achieve? And that's what Braving Boundaries looks at. And that's where the motivation side of things comes, is that if you've now found this really positive internal benefit and motivation comes from that place, rather than that negative external base, which can chop and change and isn't necessarily good for your mental health, never mind just driving and physical health, is that you can create that longer term goal, which is a sustainable way of doing it.
Do you, with Braving Boundaries, with your programs, do you look at ultimate goals then for your
you do, and some people don't have a clue what they want in the future, and that's what we do. We look at going back and determining, well, what's really important to you? What are your values?
Would you spend quite a lot of time with your clients on that to make sure that you have that sort of nailed before you go into the program?
Yeah, because
that's good. That's interesting.
It's really important. And
so if people contact you, and we'll get onto that at the end, obviously, in ways of contacting you, if they come to you and they're on your program and you are their coach, that's something that they will work on at the beginning.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Really I think it's really important as well, and I think and I'm not going to get the saying right or the wording right, but it's really important to look at oneself in order to be able to then look after your family or your job.
You are the one person that you have control over is yourself.
But there's a lot of guilt that comes with that at the beginning. I found, and I'm sure others do as well, that if you really start, from my personal circumstances, I run a business and therefore I employ staff. So they are my responsibility. I have 2 wonderful children who I hope won't be coming back at some point to interrupt the filming, but they might. They might be on camera soon. My wife, obviously, my family. So there's a lot of guilt if you start to really focus on yourself. But you have to break through that. That's what I've found myself, certainly the last year. To be the best version I can be for them. I know it sounds really cheesy, but especially, well, for all of them, the stakeholders in my life, if you want to use a business term, my staff, my kids, my wife, my family, and my friends even, then you have to really look after yourself first, and you have to keep breaking through that guilt, and that guilt might keep coming back, but and I think I know people who, and I know that, again, I'm really chopping and changing here, but I know, I think that some of the reports that are coming out now about the last year have been around stress, anxiety, and substance abuse. Now, that's always been quite big in law. We know that. We talked about that before. But I would be interested to see if that's been on the increase as well, because I know people who have really gone the other way and haven't had such a positive experience, and are really, I might not see them. George is growling. I might not see them as often as because I think they're going the other way. And is that something you've seen a lot of in terms of people becoming a bit more insular and a bit more? Is that a concern for you? Is that something you've seen?
Certainly in law. I mean, it's. I think it's to be honest, it's 50-50. I've seen it go from one way to another, but the worrying part actually is when people revert to that. I'm not going to talk. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about my issues. I'm not going to talk about my concerns and problems.
I'll block it out with booze or whatever the substance may be, and that's
or overwork and become a workaholic again, and or just numb out and not tell anyone that I'm struggling and just can't get out of bed in the morning. I mean, I've got clients that are struggling in that respect.
Demotivation, easy to revert to type. I'm on my own. No one, I can block it out with a glass of wine or 2, and then that just carries on, and that gets worse and worse and worse. And
and this is where the self-help skills and all the stuff that you're reading is great, but again, it doesn't have that one-on-one correspondence. Again, what is your concern, what's going on for you, because sometimes you just need to have a good cry and to get it out your system. And people, when people are overwhelmed and struggling, they can't see the wood for the trees. So what you need is somebody just to pull out the information for you and go, right, is this even important to be worrying about?
Sorry.
No. Is this important to be worrying about? Is this something that you really need to concern yourself? Is this something you need to be concerning yourself with now? What's the order? So you end up.
Can I do anything about it now?
Yeah.
Or is it something I need to push back and deal with at the appropriate time?
And is it really a worry? Is it something that you should be worried about?
Have I made it worse
than it is?
Do you think? Yeah, one of the things I was going to say as well. Do you think we've seen, with a lot more people talking about mental wellness, certainly again, if you see social media and traditional media as well. I think last year, our home country, the British royal family, were doing a lot of, certainly William and Harry and some of the princes were doing a lot of interviews about mental wellness, and especially, I think even Kate Middleton was doing lots of things, trying to raise awareness. A lot of the newspapers got involved. Everyone was trying to make a lot of noise about, and a lot of sports stars were coming out, being very honest. In fact, during the Olympics, we've seen quite a lot, haven't we? We saw the tennis player Osaka, and we've seen Simone Biles, the gymnast. And I follow boxing, and there's a young, very popular boxer called Ryan Garcia who recently went on a bit of a hiatus because of his mental health. He's a young 23-year-old with 20 million Instagram followers, and he said it was just all getting too much. You know, and it's great that these people are speaking out. Are you finding that people are speaking out still? This was the question I was going to ask. Or is it still seen as a bit of a weakness? You know, people like you and I will happily sit in front of a camera and tell people about our own personal journeys because we're open and we want people to feel that it's not an issue. But do you think that there's people are still seeing it as a bit of a weakness?
I think there are some people that will see it as a weakness. I think there's just a lack of awareness about the fact that there is a problem, or there is unhealthiness in the way that we are carrying out our lives.
Yeah.
Working until 1 o'clock in the morning on a regular basis is not healthy.
Do you know what? Yeah, it's not.
Full stop.
It's not, because then you don't wind down to 3 and then your alarm goes on.
And you've got 3 hours of sleep.
Yeah, it's not.
You know,
it's
not exercising full stop is not healthy. There needs to be balance in people's lives.
And also, going back to what law firms and firms in general could be doing more of, is not just a token, oh, let's have a wellness program, let's get the HR people to run it and see, you know, and then at least it's there. Going back to those IBA results, is actually it needs the employers to keep pushing it and keep creating good practices almost. I think back to, I said in our last podcast, a year ago, I'd said to my staff at the time, think about all the things that you're putting in place now from working from home, and if it's doing you well, your mental wellness, your physical wellness, then keep them. You know, if it's a run at 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, then let's keep them and work around that.
You're a great employer.
Well, I've tried, but I've also tried to use my own experiences, you know, and tried to be, you know, again, but that fits with my values. To be that kind of employer, that fits with my personal values. So then you've got, but what I've realized is you, as the employer, I keep having to remind people, like, you know, go and speak to someone if you can. Here's a link to someone, go and email them, talk to them. Or even the work environment, you know, we went back into level 3, which meant the offices could open up again. And I said, no. It's going to be, we can go back, but it's going to be hot desking only. So you'll have to book a room. You'll have to think about your day. Am I going to be most productive today if I'm actually physically in the office? And then book a desk.
The point is, though, that you're offering different alternatives. You're offering coaching. I mean, I know personally that you have offered coaching to your staff one-on-one. You've offered time out of the office. You've offered different working times from the sounds of things. Yeah. And I think that that's where law firms and corporates can really look at what they can offer for all stages. So one-on-one coaching, if it is offered at all, is offered senior staff and above. We haven't talked about this at the moment, but Coaching Advocates is the newest venture that I've entered into with 3 other lawyer coaches who are based in Australia and New Zealand. And it came as the 4 of us got together. We were looking at the legal industry. We're all either ex or current partners and general counsel, and so we've been in this 80 years together, like full lawyers, full lawyers. We've gone through it globally. Yeah. And we got together and we said, look, what can we offer that allows well-being to become something that is ingrained in across the organisation, not just at the top level, and helping seniors step into partnerships, again, profit driven. And we've called it the Modern Lawyer Programme.
Brilliant.
And it's not just aimed at mid-level junior associates. Partners can do this, but it's teaching and coaching around skills that we are not taught as lawyers. So it's looking at communication, how to effectively communicate. It's looking at the mindset of the modern lawyer, what's holding us back from actually bringing about change and the changes that we want to make in our career. It's about being the lawyer we want to be. It's about, what else have we got in there? Business development, looking at ways to effectively develop business without feeling super salesy. So it's really tapping into those emotions and the emotional intelligence side of being a lawyer, and not just the technical skills and driving profit and selling your services at the rate of knots. It's about how to create effective relationships and communicate effectively and work effectively.
It's brilliant because actually, I mean, we talked about it last year, but I've seen it and I've firsthand. The role of the lawyer and the skills the lawyer has to have has changed over the many, many years. And I mean, I wrote an article 10 years ago about how business development was going to be a key skill, and it has become that. But the rapid change this last 12 months of what a lawyer's now going to need going forward. It's great that there is a program out there under coachingadvocates.com which will help people really upskill themselves, I suppose, for want of a better term, for the future, because it's a rapid change in law. It's not just, and that's why it would be such a shame if some law firms end up going back to their old ways, because there's so much technology being implemented at the moment, and there's so many different ways of doing things. Myself and my research team, we've talked about different nations in Africa who really adapted to the online working and the online judgments and court cases and really embraced it. Things are just changing, and if there's a program out there under coachingadvocates.com that can really, really help, that's brilliant. That's wonderful.
Honestly, I love what we've created. I mean, I know I'm a bit biased by it all, but my goodness, I mean, we've got four lawyers. The coaches that are on our panel, we have 12 global coaches.
They're all on the website.
They're all on the website, but they're all participating as coaches. If you want to take on the coaching package as well as the online program, there's different types of courses available. But I'm so proud and privileged to be able to utilize each of the different coaches' skill sets to create the program. And we're all lawyers. We've all been lawyers. We are still lawyers in some cases.
You've all needed coaching.
We've all needed coaching.
Yeah.
We've created our own lives because of coaching.
Well, it's also good that you've got a big panel of teammates that you're putting together, because, much like a therapist or a doctor or a dentist, you're not going to necessarily find the right one that suits you straight away. And also, I know from the research that I've done, but as you just mentioned, there are different units or programs to suit whatever one's needs might be.
Yeah, some people like to learn purely online. They don't want to have that interaction with human contact. They like chunking everything down and doing it all in one go. So there's the availability of doing the 6 modules all in one chunk in your own time. There's the option of doing live calls. There's only one option to do that this year. It starts on the 8th of September. So you can join live calls as well as doing the online course, network, get to know more people in the legal industry.
Just joining a community. Almost.
Yeah, joining a community, exactly. And there is the option of doing one-on-one coaching. And I think, I'm going to get this wrong, I think it's 3 sessions that we offer alongside either just the online package or the online plus live package. So that you can actually go on one-on-one, implement the things that you are learning, check them out, test them, highlight your personal concerns whilst you're talking about them. I think it's brilliant. And if if law firms look at this from a perspective of, gosh, we get to implement a program to the whole suite of our lawyers, because it's on a much more cost-effective rate than potentially one-on-one coaching is, which is naturally more expensive. This is a great midway point. And
obviously, if someone comes to you and they're using you, and then for some crazy reason they don't seem to get on with you,
yes,
you will refer them to someone else potentially.
I don't expect, if people want to come and talk about work-life balance or create issues outside of the business or toxic work environments, they might want to come and talk to me. But if they want to talk about think about something, Frieda. If they want to talk about drafting their CV and applying for a job, they may prefer to chat to Claire, who's very much on career coaching, and she's excellent at career coaching. So we all have our different skills. Yeah. Lara's very much NLP focused. She's a master NLP coach, I think is the title, and she's super all the different kind of mindset types and looking at skills if you really want skills to be able to approach it. And Katie's an ontological coach, so a whole different suite of skills that she brings to the table. And again, all of the other coaches are the same. They've come with completely different backgrounds. So,
and I'm guessing you're looking to build up that complement of coaches as well, and keep growing and keep building. Now, on the 19th of August, which is not far away.
No, it's not far away.
You've very kindly asked me to compare an event, which will be with the ladies you've just mentioned, Lara, Claire, Kate, and yourself, on a panel. We're doing that via Zoom, because obviously they're in Australia and New Zealand, and we're here. And what we'll do is we'll get a link in the for the event underneath here, or
and we're going to
in the content.
We really want to discuss what it takes to be a modern lawyer,
and
that's the focus. We want to start having that discussion around the skills we need, the way that we see law, the way that we see law progressing, that there isn't that traditional technical skills, got to do the skills, but it's really going to help. It's practical ways of helping lawyers develop.
It's so necessary. And I'm really looking forward to the discussion, because I want to find out more about it and more about the program and what's available. Because again, my position is from a career perspective for lawyers. So it's the work that's being done before they make their next decision. It's fascinating. It links wonderfully. I'm really looking forward to it. And if it goes well and it's popular, I'm sure we'll do another one again, and we'll go on from there.
Yeah, so 19th of August, 8:30 a.m. Cape Town time, so South Africa time. I think
that's 2:30 in Singapore and Hong Kong, and I think a little bit into the later afternoon in Sydney. So it'd be a good time for the UK, but no one in the US unless they're up
they can
working
record, sign
at
up,
3 o'clock in the
we'll
morning.
send a video.
And they might sit there and go, actually, this is what
probably
I need.
do it.
We should actually maybe target lawyers in New York with this. Like, are you still at your desk? If you are, talk to one of these people. Well, that's great, because that again, it shows the progression during the year, and this is kind of what I was trying to allude to. How far have we come in this last 12 months? Which is, we were talking about it. People hadn't really started talking about it in the law yet. Then very quickly, law firms were putting out wellness programs and celebrating Wellness Month and things like that. But not sure if me, with my cynical eye, I'm sitting there going, how serious are they really taking this? But then you've put in, with Braving Boundaries and now Coaching Advocates, you put in tangible, incredibly well-educated, well thought-out programs that really hit at the issues and give people the skills.
And
so you should really
practical
implementation. So to have come that far in 12 months, I mean, you really should.
I don't think
pat
I'd
yourself
realise.
on the back. But between yourself, in terms of what you're doing with Braving Boundaries, but what you're doing with your teammates at Coaching Advocate, coachingadvocates.com, that is amazing, because you've come so far. And also what I like about it as well is you haven't sat. I know from our discussions that you are talking to law firms about their programs, but I mean, that's going to be a slow burn. But what you've done as well, you're focusing on the individual, because this is something that lawyers can take control of themselves. They can take control of and upskill themselves. It's not about getting CPD points. No. It's not about doing something you have to do. This is about you. This is about improving you and giving yourself the skills to improve. I mean, on another note, we, because we've talked about it, but I do a lot of talks, career talks with law schools at universities. So in the last year, we've done 4 here in South Africa. At the end of the day, although we don't recruit juniors and people out of university, I want to be able to give something back to the community that we serve. And these guys, you'll remember yourself being at university, we're really not sure where we're quite young. We're not sure where we're going or what we should be doing. So I want to try and give them a full picture. And one of the things we touch on, certainly is not necessarily the courses and the programs that you've invented, but sort of alluding to that, saying that there are things available now that will help you with everything that you don't learn at university and everything you aren't going to learn during your articles, to upskill yourself for what is a very daunting future, because the legal industry is becoming much more technologically focused. It's going to be less reliant on the human element. It's still going to need it, but and I think that's a worry. People are unsure what they should be learning. But
yeah, I agree. I agree that.
Programs.
Do you know, there's some great. I mean, I obviously have the Braving Boundaries and there's Coaching Advocates social media forums. So we're on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, and Braving Boundaries that's what came out this year actually, was the Braving Boundary monthly newsletter, which kind of is a summary of what's gone on in social media and whatever I'm thinking about at that particular point when I wrote the newsletter. It's usually quite insightful, but it's certainly informative, and it certainly touches on the topics that need to be discussed in the legal industry. And the nice thing for Braving Boundaries is that I've managed to expand and to bring on board other people to help me. So from a business perspective, I've got my marketing manager. I've got a brilliant co-writer, Alicia Koch, who is she owns the Legal Bell Triste, and she co-writes with me quite a lot. And she's an ex-lawyer as well. So we've got that really beautiful collaboration that goes on a daily basis. And we've also released the Lawyer Life podcast with Anya Smirnova. Again, she's ex-NR, so ex-Norton Rose with me. And so we do this every couple of weeks, a topic on creating work-life balance for lawyers. And it's just looking at all of these different elements and all of those different collaborations and the wealth of knowledge and information that I get, never mind what we're then capable of giving to the legal community, has been really quite astounding for the last year. And your point about junior lawyers is that there's so much accessible information on Anya's website, my website, the Coaching Advocates website, through Alicia's articles around what's going on in the law, tips for the junior lawyers to be able to think about when they're going into their careers, career progression. There's lots. So
there's a lot of free
tools
out there without people being bombarded again, but it'd be specifically
but it's focused on
that's great.
Lawyers as well.
So Braving Boundaries, it's come a long way in the last year, which is fantastic. It's been amazing to watch your journey, and I'm so proud of you personally. And I know you've got a heck of a long way to go, and you've got lots and lots of ideas and improvements you're going to keep making. But what's the plan? Is there expansion plans? What are you looking at doing?
Well, I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, so there's no doubt that I've got lots of vision and expansion ideas. But for Braving Boundaries, the big news, I think, and it was going to come out on my birthday rather than before, but I'm actually going to expand Braving Boundaries out of just the legal sector.
Amazing.
I've had a number of people. I worked in the commodities sector for 6 years. I've worked through clients through a number of different industries whilst I've been a lawyer, and I've had a number of people who've actually contacted me and said, why aren't you doing this broader than the legal sector? I said, well, I am. I just don't. All the advice you receive when you set up your own business was to niche down. And I'm very comfortable talking about legal issues, but it doesn't mean those issues are not present, and the struggles and the issues and concerns that people have are not present in other industries and just day-to-day life. So it's expanding out of the legal industry to cater for other professionals as well. So I'm very excited about
wonderful.
That. Yeah, and I didn't. I suppose there you go. Here's a bit of insight from my perspective. I didn't realise that I could add value to the commodities world, for example. I didn't really see. I'm not a trader, so why would my experience as a lawyer necessarily affect it? But as I've grown through my own practice and listening to the concerns and coaching people that are not lawyers, I've actually realised that. I was going to swear then. I was going to say same shit, different business, but it's the issues are very much similar.
It's a human issue. It's rather than an industry issue. Yeah, I mean, I think from all the conversations you and I have had on camera and off camera, the similarities in recruitment and law and finance are all very similar because the trials and tribulations or the issues or the targets or whatever it might be they're universal and across business as opposed to that's fantastic. And you're going to be launching that in the next couple of weeks? Have you
Yeah.
already got clients lined up? Or is it?
The clients are there. I mean, the clients have been there anyway. So I've been coaching outside of lawyers for the last 12 months as well as with lawyers. But there's a new program that's coming up, which I won't be telling you about just yet. It's coming soon, which is exciting. And the more work I can do around the Enneagram, the better. That will definitely get rolled out more into the team environment as well as the individual environment.
Your audience isn't just limited to where you're based, is it? I mean, I think
No.
I don't know because we've not really talked about it, but I'm pretty sure at least one of your clients is in America or something. I think on the website there was a client that's given a...
I've got lots of clients in America, UK.
Testimonial.
There are people in South Africa. I've actually probably got more international clients than I do South African
So
clients.
people anywhere,
Yeah.
anybody, however they stumble across this interview, they can reach you. Bravingboundaries.com is the start of their journey, but you'll work around time zones.
My biggest recommendation is to sign up to the newsletter, get a feel, see if I resonate with you from if you like what I'm talking about. If you don't like me, don't come and coach with me. There needs to be such a good rapport with your coach if you want to move forwards and to benefit from coaching.
Now, there's one thing that we are going to be doing together, which is very exciting as well. And this has obviously been in the pipeline for a while, is to go on the road, yourself and me, and do a sort of a Q&A roadshow. And we'll start in South Africa, obviously, because we're both here. Now, we've been talking about this for a while, but due to various lockdowns and getting momentum up to go, okay, well, let's get the planning in place, and then suddenly we go back down to level 5 again, or level 4.
3.5, whatever the hell
okay,
it is.
Well, and I think this is going to be a Q&A session where I'm going to obviously compare it, but it's going to be centered around you and the assistance you can give professionals. So it doesn't have to we don't have to specifically target lawyers, and it'll be a Q&A fireside chat, almost, I think they're called nowadays. But you and I have both been very driven about doing this in person.
Yes.
So getting lockdown levels and people's comfortable mindset state to a position where they're willing to come out again. So we're looking to kickstart this at the end of October in Cape Town to start with, to make sure that we're doing the right thing, but people are actually going to come, and we'll see, and then we'll look to take that through South Africa, and then we could end up taking it further afield once we can get on a plane. Yeah,
what I've missed is that personal interaction. I think you can get a real sense of a person. Yes, video is great, but I think you can get a real sense of trust and confidence in a person when you actually see them. And it is not a marketing roadshow. It is about creating awareness and realization that you can be successful in your career and do it in a sensible, sustainable, and a healthy way. And that's what I want to be opening up for discussion as we go through this. And if coaching stems from it, great. But what I want is lawyers to realise, and this I think will probably be more focused on the legal industry, but I want people to understand that there are alternative ways of doing this.
I think the words you use there about almost effectively reminding people that, or giving them the tools almost to have a sustainable career in
permission
to have a sustainable long career and retire as a happy lawyer one day
into a life that you have created because you've nurtured
it ties in with all of your programs about the modern lawyer, and I'm sure all of this will be brought into the Q&A sessions that we do. For me, it's funny you should say that it's not a marketing exercise, because it isn't. I think you mentioned, we talked about it briefly the other day, and then I thought, oh yeah, I should probably put the company logo on it, I suppose, because it's not about that. It's really not about. It's about getting a message out there about the fact that there are people out there that can help. That the sustainable career and setting themselves up as a modern lawyer and having the tools should really be their main goal. And it's okay to, as we move into a new phase of how the world is going to be, they arm themselves correctly. And I think also for me, it's about getting people back face to face with someone like you, connected.
Community. I miss my community.
And showing that there are people like, you know, like us, well, certainly yourself and me, that really genuinely cares about people's mental wellness, that they're out there. And we're not just behind a screen on a Zoom call. They're actually, we'll get people out. I think it's going to be very popular. I think people are, you know, once the vaccination program here really takes hold, and as I'm sure I think it is, certainly in the Western Cape, it's doing very well. I think that's going to be great. And so we're going to be aiming for the end of October. Yeah. With date and venue to be confirmed, and then and it will be free. And I'm looking at you.
Yes, it will. Yes,
we decided on that because we really want to encourage people to start talking about this. Yeah. And if it's popular, we'll do another one, and we'll go further with it, and that's going to be great. So there'll be more details to follow on that, but it'll be a great chance for people for free to come out, connect with Braving Boundaries, connect with you.
Connect with your network again.
Yes.
See everybody again.
See everyone again. Realise that you know that people are also having trials and tribulations. Actually, I spoke to a lawyer the other day, a managing partner of a firm, and he sort of alluded to the fact that this would be something that he would be like to come to, because he would like to see how other people have been and other firms have been dealing with these kinds of issues. So he'll definitely come.
Do you know what a great way, actually, because I do think that law firms have kind of hunkered down. You know, no one talks about whether or not they're doing well or not. There's this huge external image that's doing super well. But, you know, the reality is that, well, if we go by statistics, we know that some will be doing well and some will not be doing well. And that's okay. Yeah. We go through cycles in this life and this world, and maybe we just have a bit of an honest conversation about it.
And the most important thing is that you come back stronger and with more tools in one's
more innovative, more, you know, let's do this. I just want to just tap onto one thing that I don't think we've talked about is we spoke a couple of months ago and about, gosh, you know, I'm so frustrated about how things are going at the moment. Back in lockdown, and there's lots of different reactions that are going on around the world at the moment. So South Africa's just gone through another lockdown. Honestly, I don't know the number. But, you know, drink stores were closed again, restrictions on where you could go, gatherings, entertainment sector's been utterly decimated. Thank you, that's the word. And it's, you know, it's been another hard hit to the system. Australia's back in lockdown, Sydney's back in full lockdown, and go like a critical lockdown. The UK's got variants flying around that aren't, you know, it's got its whole vaccine program out, and now it's got another variant it's got to deal with, so numbers are on the increase again. We are actually experiencing, and I was thinking about this last night before we recorded, is that we're actually going through this kind of grief process. So talking about personalities previously, different personalities and how different people are reacting, there's also that kind of the grief process, which is, I'll get these in order: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And I've certainly experienced various phases of this throughout the year. And I think rather than it being a physical loss, it's just this loss to normality. So if you think about it, so we've been in denial. It's only going to last for a few minutes, you know, a few months. We'll be through this. When we spoke last time, how long did we think it would last? Certainly not another year.
A couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be fine by Christmas. Be all good. So you've gone through that denial process. Anger or frustration. You know, there's the reaction of, goodness sakes, how are we not back to normal?
Been there.
Yeah, I know, because when we spoke at one point, you were really frustrated. Things irritating you at home, things irritating people at work. There's just that gut anger that's sitting there. Then you get to that bargaining stage, which people are, and that feeling of helplessness. We can't do anything about this. And so you start bargaining, you know, if I just get this job or this transaction through or this client in, then I promise I will, blah, 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 blah. You know, you start bargaining, and it's usually with a higher power.
Please get me through this. Please. I know I haven't been to church in a while, but, you know, please. Yeah.
And you start, and that's that helplessness stage. Depression, and I use that word loosely, but
fear, anxiety.
Exactly, it's that realization that actually this is real and this isn't going anywhere, and you know, there's much a heaviness. For me, that stage came when I was like, I can't get home. I've not been home for 2 years.
Yeah.
And this is real now. And I've not seen my parents. I've not met my nephew who was born a year ago. You know, it's that real sharp, short realization that this is normal now. This is our reality. And then acceptance, which is, okay, it is what it is. How do we move forwards? And, you know, you revert back and forward between these 5 stages in a normal
you're not
grief
just
process.
stuck in one, you're going back and and forward and back.
And particularly when the world is changing and, you know, you're locked down again, you're not locked down again, you don't know where your parameters are. But this change and this loss of normality is really affecting people in different ways. And that, you know, again, it stems to how people react depends on what drives them and what motivates them. But there is an external force that is impacting people's behaviour as well.
I couldn't agree more. And then you tie that in with the fact that the work targets probably haven't changed, and in many ways they've gone up. You know, and that there's part of that 5 stages of guilt, loss, and you know, is grief. Sorry, is you know, the overarching umbrella of work targets and revenue. And at some point in that process, you really don't know whether your client's going to spend any more money, you know, but the pressure's still on, and you're at home, and there's a lot of new things. I think that is, you're right. I think the world is in a grieving process. I think the legal sector, there's many lawyers. There's no one that I know that is just banging on as normal. There's just, you know, there's no one that's not been affected in some way, shape or form. And I talk to many hundreds of lawyers in a month, and they're all, you know, some of varying degrees of admittance, you know, but things have changed. And, you know, I remember the beginning of the lockdown last year here in South Africa in April 2020. I went for a walk up the mountain here with my wife, and I said to her, we're about to enter the biggest social experiment since the Second World War. I said, I don't think you understand what's happening. The world is being told to go indoors, and it's going to have a really big effect. And we didn't know what it was going to be. We went for, like many thousands of people, we went on the mountain for the last walk before we had to go in.
And you got told off because you went day late.
We got told off by the police, who weren't wearing masks. But I pointed that out. No, I didn't, and then I held back because I didn't want to get into an argument. But it was one of those, you know, and I still think the same. We are still in the midst of a social experiment, which is, you know, where the governments are, but certainly this government, for instance, that we live under here, is being controlled by a national committee of 6 people that are deciding our every move. Like, that is unheard of in a democracy. That's unheard of so you know, whilst it might sound a little bit strong, you know, our basic human rights have been taken away for the last 18 months. In many countries, it's worse than others, which is why you see in places that are used to being free, like America or Britain. I saw in Holland and Spain and Italy, and France recently, there were lots of protests. A rebellion of like, this can't go on anymore. We did it for a year, but now we're not. Well, we want our freedom back. You have all of that pressure and the work pressures and what people are facing, and you know, which is why, you know, bringing it back to the law, I think the invention and the launch of Braving Boundaries and now coachingadvocates.com has been so fantastic for the industry, and I'm so pleased that you're busy and that people are, and it's just growing and building and growing, because, you know, I think we all think there's 5% of our brain thinking, okay, we're going to get out of this soon, and we'll have learned new skills, and we're going to be flexi working and things like that. But it's only going to take another variant to shut the place down again. And we're going to be back to that again, and we're going to be uncertain of where our next, you know, client's going to spend money on us, you know, that kind of thing. So
it just Coaching Advocates and Braving Boundaries, they provide different avenues to looking at a situation that hasn't changed in decades, in centuries. It's trying to help the law change direction.
Well, that, and if the industry won't change, what they can do is individuals can
individuals
arm
and
themselves.
individual teams.
And individual teams can come to you and they can arm themselves. We're doing the same with GRM at the moment. One of the things we're looking at on the recruitment side, we've done a lot of pivoting the business and embracing new technology over the last year, but I'm about to go on this 6-month program with a UK training company that specialise in helping recruitment business really sort of refresh, retrain, set new goals, new targets, all with a COVID eye. So it's almost going to be a whole refresher course for 6 months. I haven't had a boss for 15 years, so it'd be good to have someone to tell me what to do and put in place new things to arm my staff and myself for the new normal, for want of a better term. We've always lived, you and I have been lucky enough to live around the world, and we've been through various recessions and depressions and what have you. But so we know that the markets are always volatile, but this is volatile on a whole different scale. We don't like we just said, there might be a new variant that might come out of Timbuktu tomorrow, and suddenly we're back in level 4 or level 5, and then we've got to navigate that. So
do you know where Timbuktu is?
I do. I did. I said it the other day, and then I knew where, and then I thought,
I shouldn't have asked that. I don't know. I think it might be Ethiopia now.
It's somewhere. It's somewhere on this continent, I'm pretty sure. But
anyone know?
Somewhere in
Africa.
It's somewhere in Africa. Yeah. So it's great, and I think that that's what people need to realise. If there's one message we can get through to people, it's that there are professionals out there. Bravingboundaries.com is out there to arm you with the tools to handle the next 20 years and be a sustainable lawyer, and that's great. Well, thank you, Frieda. Thank you for joining me at my house, and thank you for spending your time with me. And it's so great to see how far you've come, how far Braving Boundaries has come, to talk about the launch of Coaching Advocates, to talk about our event on the 19th, to talk about the forthcoming roadshow. There's so much going on with you. It's wonderful to see. I'm really proud of you, but I'm also proud of the legal community that's accepting assistance, but also they're obviously clearly your clients and those of Claire and Lara and Katie, they're all, and other coaches. There's obviously a lot of legal professionals out there going, I need to arm myself. I need to deal with what's going on with now, but I also need to skill myself. So it's great to see that you're making a real change to the industry. There's so many things that we've seen in the legal sector that's changed. Just very briefly touching on, I think I mentioned it earlier, that we've seen a lot of people either stay exactly where they are, and there's a mild fear of moving on, or we've seen people set up on their own, leave the big corporate law firms and just set up on their own consulting and look at a better work-life balance. But within law firms, we've seen a huge amount of change as well, to deal with the pandemic, and a lot of that's driven by the revenue and the revenue that people are making. So the biggest change we've seen in the legal career sector has been senior level lawyer remuneration, and there's a massive push towards zero lockstep anymore. The lockstep model is dying, and much more moving towards profit share only, no guarantees on salaries and things like that. That's driving some lawyers to then go, well, I might as well do this for myself. But some lawyers are sitting there going, well, actually, I get the marketing support, I get the branding support, I get my clients, so going out on my own doesn't necessarily make sense. But it is a massive shift because it is, and we've seen the rise of what I think they're calling the distributed funds law firms, or distributed fund law firms. I can't remember the exact term of it, but there's two in particular, one from the UK called Spencer West and one in the US called Rimon Law. Now, Rimon Law, over the last 5 years, have opened up 42 offices.
Oh, wow.
They are becoming a real player in that market, but they are focused solely on senior partners coming in who want a work-life balance. You can work from anywhere. You take 70% of your whatever your fee is, and then you get marketing support and a computer, and you're supporting. This was invented before lockdown, but it's gone exponentially grown.
Similar structure to what I was on.
Similar structure, and it seems to be the way. And then where your courses and your programs may come in handy, and I should start referring people actually. Sorry, is where the lawyers we speak to about career change, a lot of them are very fearful about going out on their own. A lot of them are very fearful about moving to a more commission-based structure, if you like. and aren't necessarily believing that they've got the tools. And I think what we'll see, my prediction going forward, is this is going to become the norm. Next 12 months, there will be a larger majority of law firms remunerating their lawyers that way, so that they take on less overheads. It's going to increase the fear factor and the need for business development skills in the individual lawyer. I think that a lot of them are going to be worried. There's going to be a lot of, there's going to be a lot more need for them to upskill themselves with the type of program they can get through Coaching Advocates and Braving Boundaries. And I think when we do another recap in 12 months' time, hopefully we're not in any lockdowns or anything anymore. But I think when you and I sit down again, I think we would have seen a humongous increase. I think Braving Boundaries is going to go from strength to strength. I wouldn't be surprised if you have other offices and big teams of people working for you.
I'm not sure in 12 months.
You never know. I mean, you move so rapidly with what you've done already to get it in place and get it working. I'm so proud. It's amazing to watch. And I think with the changes in the way that law firms are structuring and the way that they're remunerating, there's going to be a lot more need for setting yourself up as a modern lawyer.
I must say, just to add to that and to finish off on that point, is that it's been really encouraging with the firms that we've been working with, and whether through Coaching Advocates or Braving Boundaries, but the firms that we're working with and the firms that we have been talking to about what they want to do. There is definitely a greater push, certainly from the learning and development departments and the HR departments, and buy-in from the top management.
Great. Towards
team coaching, towards individual support and coaching, depending on levels, but also on good quality programs to be being put in to help around professional development, but not just on the technical skills, on personal development, on awareness, on self-awareness, on communication, on team building fundamentally. And that excites me